Hello, everybody. Welcome. Tesla is up 6%, $580 billion market cap, 47 PE ratio. Markets are flat. Dow Jones, Nasdaq, S&P 500, and Russell 2000 are all flat. Tesla is outperforming today by a wide margin, up 6%. I see a lot of claps and thumbs ups and loves. I guess people are happy about this. Nick, how happy are you?
I just sold 80% of my shares yesterday, and I don't know, I'm just so upset.
Are you really?
Yeah, I mean, I was just so scared. There was all this fear in the air. Elon's selling. Elon's gonna get fired from Tesla.
It looks to have kind of a bench seat setup, super simple, where you can fit maybe 2 or 3 people in there, maybe 3 people with the armrest up, 2 people with the armrest down, but it's kinda like one big seat area. Looks like a smaller vehicle than the 3 and Y, kind of a single, row, right? So think about all the savings you're getting. Now you don't need 4 doors, now you only need 2 doors, right? And now you need less battery to go the same amount of range. So to get 300 miles, you need a smaller battery pack. The windshield up over your head. So it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to ride in, and you got a screen there. So we're getting a better sense, I think, of what this Tesla Cybercab vehicle is going to look like, and it looks pretty exciting. So I think the 3 and Y will probably serve a segment of the rides that 3, 4, 5 people. Let's say you're going out to dinner with your family, but most people are. Hey, I see we got AI driver here. If you want to bring him up, Yaman.
Yeah,
But
that would be great if he's available.
But yeah, I think just having something that's kind of like the workhorse of the fleet. This is the one they're going to make the most of. 1 to 2 people, right? Your average rideshare ride's 1.2 people. You look at most cars, there's one person in them. This really enables the lowest cost per mile for delivery, for just get when you need to get where you want to go just as cheaply as possible. This is going to be that vehicle for you. So we saw a few concept shots, a few teasers. That may or may not be what it ends up looking like, but yeah, we'll see more on 8.8.
AI driver, welcome. How are you?
Doing good, man. Pleasure to be here. I'm actually working on some other stuff, so probably not going to talk too much. Just trying to figure out why stonks go up sometimes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, things move, but yeah, even if you don't speak, that's fine. You can stay on the speaker board. If we have a question for you, you can just look pretty. That's totally fine.
But I
Yeah,
think we
sounds good to
saw some
me.
good numbers out of China last night. That could be part of the reason. We're also seeing some comments from the Fed. I think Tesla's very rate sensitive compared to other stocks. So those could be some of the reasons for today's price action.
Yeah. Who knows, right? These things move. Stock market works in mysterious ways. We have a couple of new speakers on the board, so let's kind of go through them real quick. Robinson, go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks. I was actually curious to know maybe the future of Tesla, maybe in 10 to 15 years. I know that the future looks bright with the no steering wheel, no steering wheel. Then also that
Robinson,
is
just to I don't mean to interrupt, but first time speakers are required to ask questions, and your question
okay.
should start with a question word. So those are what, when, who, which, how. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay, how does the future of Tesla pricing stock look in 10 years from now?
Omar?
Well, nobody can predict the stock market, obviously, but I think Tesla has one of the most exciting product roadmaps I've ever seen and one of the most exciting lineups I've ever seen. I mean, fundamentally, we're looking at, with the clean energy transition here, an unprecedented transition in economic history where the entire world's economic infrastructure is moving from using fossil fuels to power the industrial processes that make our economy work, such as, for example, moving people around, or energy to power your home, your business, and moving that all to electricity. So really, we have this massive opportunity, and Tesla is the number one EV maker in the world. They're the only profitable EV maker in the world, and they didn't kind of stop there. I mean, they've got this CEO and this team that's always trying to 10x the business. So they've started developing this AI now. I think probably in 10 years, most people will be using driverless electric cars for the majority of road transport miles. And then, I think they're extending it even further. They're now building humanoid robots using that same type of intelligence. So, I mean, I think that in 10 years, Tesla could be one of the largest companies in the world.
Great. New York Money.
Yes, my question's on the Tesla Semi. Lots of news came out yesterday. When they scale up to 50,000 semis per year, let's assume that they sell as that's their target. What's your thought on the potential revenue and profit they could generate at that level?
Omar, what do you think?
Well, it's probably going to be a money loser at first, but I think they can eke out a modest profit on it. The real revenue source long term is going to come from actually deploying autopilot and FSD onto the semi and actually taking a cut of all the freight eventually transported using these Tesla vehicles. So I think right now the most important thing is just sort of proving that it works, right? There's a lot of doubts that this can even work. So really interesting presentation by Dan Priestley. Go check it out on the Auto Spec podcast if you haven't. A lot of details on what's going on with the semi, where they're at. But yeah, I think just 50,000 units I think would be great if they can actually achieve that. There's a lot of customers who've been waiting a long time to get their hands on this, and just proving that it works, that you can use it for real workloads, that you can replace a diesel truck without leaving anything to be desired, and building out the charging network, right? So they gave some stats. They said about $500 per kilowatt is what it costs Tesla to build out fast charging for the semi, whereas the industry is about $1,000 per kilowatt. So essentially, these chargers are megawatt chargers, 1,000 kilowatts. So they're essentially saying it costs $500,000 to build out these charging stations. We're going to need to build them out all across the country. And obviously, Tesla doesn't have to do all of that themselves, but there's going to be a lot of investment into, obviously just manufacturing the semi, the battery cell procurement needed. This thing has an 800 kilowatt hour battery, and also the charging network. So I probably don't see it being a contributor to cash flow in the next 12 months. It's probably going to be more of a money eater than a cash flow generator for now. But I think it's a really important area for them to get into long term for two reasons. One, to show that electric can really handle every vehicle segment, even the heaviest duty workloads. And two, because it's just an incredibly powerful platform for their autonomous efforts. If you look at what the value per mile is for a semi compared to, say, a robotaxi, the semi driver is making a lot more money than the robotaxi. And the miles they're driving are much easier and simpler by comparison.
All right. Machine, would you like to answer the question, why is the stock up 6% today?
Just a guess, but I think it's the video of that Omar retweeted of John McElroy's mini-me, who I presume is his son, who speaks with the same tone of voice as him. I found that was amusing. Giving more information about
Wait, that wasn't John McElroy? I thought it was him,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah, that's his son. Oh my God. Machine, is this the first time you're listening to that?
No, I've listened to Autoline before.
Yeah. He
I've never
took
heard his
over like a
son.
year ago.
I've heard, the dad and all his old OEM buddies there,
Yeah.
gradually over time, he's turned, he's not as curmudgeoned as them. They're still ones who are very curmudgeon against Tesla, right? He was a few years ago, and he's kind of turned. But I've never seen his son. So, anyways, this video
This
clip.
video, by the way, is on YouTube screen, so you guys can see it there. One compact model for the US, one for Europe. It's a minute video.
So I
All
think, that gives, number one, a little more. Well, number one, it just gives substantiation again that there will be some Model 2 compact that's not a robotaxi, which wasn't entirely clear from the earnings call. And two, some actual detail on when they'll be produced, which we didn't have before. So I think that's the reason for the market response.
All right, can you share? I haven't seen the video. Can you share the details?
I think it just, Omer saw it too, but basically it just says from some supplier, they know that there's going to be a Model 2 versions of the Model 2, one for Europe, one for the US. The US is Model 2X, which is going to be a little more rugged. And the Model 2 in Europe is going to be a little more basic. And I believe they said it's going to go into production in Europe in early 2027, and in Austin in early 2026. I think that was basically it.
Well, how is that different from what we already thought?
Well, I don't think it's different than what other people thought, except some people like myself who weren't entirely sure if they weren't clear when they said future vehicles, if they actually still meant a Model 2 versus, different versions of the Model Y. So I think it's going to be both. So I think there's just a little more clarity there and people responding positively to it. Obviously, I
Okay.
could be wrong. It could be people betting on Musk, comp package getting voted through. It could just be speculation.
Okay. Let me read a couple of comments from Jake McCombs on YouTube live chat. Perhaps the $25,000 car being built on the same platform was just a hedge for if fully autonomous wasn't ready for robotaxi in time. Below are the quotes from Isaacson's book in chapter 80 you may want to share. Quote number 1, Musk teased the possibility of $25,000 car in 2020, but then he put a hold on those plans. And over the next 2 years, he repeatedly vetoed the idea, saying that the robotaxi would make it unnecessary. And the quote number 2, our main focus has to be robotaxi volume. There is no amount that we could possibly build that will be enough. Someday we want to be at 20 million a year. Quote number 3, machine is always wrong. No, he didn't say that.
So I think, to me, there's no change in the production estimates here for growth of Tesla vehicles. The Model 2 is not coming for basically 3 years, not going to contribute to bottom line in that time period. And, I know in the next few years, we really just have maybe some modifications of the Model Y to help add to production levels that people will be willing to buy. So, but otherwise, I don't see much. In robotaxi, we don't know when they're. I guess we don't know, right? We don't know when robotaxi is going to begin production, and I assume that's what we'll find out in 8.8. That's kind of the big gap in terms of volume growth that might come in the next few years.
Okay. Let's go to another first-time speaker, Monarch, who is a Purdue, I think, Purdue grad. Nick. Monarch, you may unmute yourself and go ahead.
Boiler up.
3, 2. Did Purdue teach how to unmute? Nick?
Stop it.
All right. Let's
I
move
got
on.
I got something, Yaman.
What do you got?
The UK has released an Autonomous Vehicle Act, and they call it the AV Act. Sawyer posted that earlier this morning, and it's quite interesting. And perhaps this will be the framework for the future. But in Great Britain, they're saying that this is going to be about 42 billion worth of revenue, creating over 38,000 jobs. And the law is going to require this is what the law is going to require for self-driving vehicles to achieve a level of safety at least as high as careful and competent human drivers, as well as meeting rigorous safety checks before being allowed onto roads. Therefore, in the future, deaths and injuries from drunk driving, it says drink driving, speeding, tiredness, and inattentiveness could be drastically reduced. So, I mean, right now, I think perhaps Tesla meets this qualification on their FSD. In addition, it also says things about the liability, and the liability will be shared or I don't know the exact words, but it will be with the insurance and the software providers. It'll be put back on them and the driver if they're engaged in the full self-driving or autonomous won't be held liable.
Okay. You said this is from Europe or UK?
UK.
Okay. All right. Omar, what do you think about this article? Self-driving vehicles set to be on the roads in the UK by 2026 as Automated Vehicle Act has now become law.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing just how everybody was saying, "Oh, the regulators, they'll never approve it." And then suddenly, boom, 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 all across the world, regulators are making the steps that need to be taken to actually bring this to market. You're seeing in China major hurdles such as mapping and data security being overcome so that they can eventually bring FSD supervised to that market. You're seeing them meet with people in Germany and Sweden, and you're seeing in the EU a proposal for system initiated maneuvers and operation without a nag. And now you're seeing this in the UK. So it's all good signs. I obviously haven't looked into this in detail, but generally it seems like progress for the industry, having a framework that you can launch under. I also think it's really critical the standard that Nick mentioned, that it has to be as good as a competent human driver, because we've had people come into this space for many months and years saying twice as good isn't enough. It needs to be 10 times as good because before regulators let it on the road, because they won't tolerate even one mistake. And that's not the standard that's applied here. They're saying, look, if it's better than a human, it can start fixing tiredness, drunk driving, all these issues that the computer doesn't have. So if others follow in establishing that as the standard, we're going to see these vehicles come to market much sooner than many expected.
Machine, have you adjusted your timeline to robotaxis based on some of these regulatory proceedings and other considerations?
No, I don't think regulations matter for first robotaxis because there's always going to be some places that are very lax.
Okay. I mean, that's basically what, basically what Omar said too. And he's just more positive about saying these things. Whereas,
I'm not positive or negative. I'm not trying to emotionally affect you. I know you're a highly emotional, unstable person, and so are many people in
not
your
even
spaces.
true. That's not
I
even
mean, have you
true. I'm like
seen?
the most stable person in this
Yeah, right.
space.
Have you seen
Let me ask you something. What's your trading status right now? Tesla and Nvidia and other
my
chip stocks.
trading status is single. Looking around, I sold the bit of Tesla calls I had today, and Nvidia I had sold. Was it last week? I think, or yeah, what today's Tuesday, so last week around 950. Um, I have a whole bunch of stocks you don't want to get into, but I'm waiting for better opportunities, whether it's going long or short, for both of those, Tesla and Nvidia. Right now, I'm not feeling strongly one way or the other.
Yeah. So you swing both ways and you keep your options open, basically.
I swing both ways, front door, back door, whatever you want.
I don't want any of it. Humanities, go ahead. Humanities Patriots. You may unmute yourself and go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Thank you. I have two questions. The first one is, what is the expected margin, if anyone knows, for a semi produced at full scale? So
Well,
once everything scales up, yeah.
The pricing will probably change from what they announced in, I think the first time they talked about it was 2018. And so, and then obviously Omar talked about you have to mute yourself when you're not talking.
Sorry.
Omar talked about FSD aspects of FSD semis that I think is going to be important. I think the timeline to semi production and volume production is still uncertain. And then one more thing, the CFO, our last CFO, Kirkhorn, said when they launch a new product, they target 25% gross margins. So I mean, I would just assume that for now. Machine.
And keep in mind, at least for now, there are these IRA benefits. There's some production credits as well. Then for the purchaser, I believe gets a massive discount. So I think those would, if stay, would keep a big boon to gross margins, at least for a while. But I think a lot of the cost obviously comes down to battery costs. And we know for the lithium iron phosphate for a shorter range semi, those will be now imported at some point. Maybe they'll build them in Reno, in Nevada. And but for the long range, that's unclear because that's going to be presumably 2170. We thought maybe 4680. So that's going to be all about cost reduction for Tesla, and that it's a massive battery, right? So that's going to be a lot of the cost.
Yeah, exactly. All right. What? You have your hand up again? What? You
Well,
literally just talk. You mute, you talk, you mute yourself, and you raise your hand.
Because I need to segment these. Otherwise, you're going to say I'm talking too long. Now,
You're talking too long anyway. But keep
you're
going.
getting a lot of comments here. People,
What happened? Nick, go ahead.
I wanted to ask if it's been covered or discussed. I read an article today about Tesla Solar handling some of the supercharging stuff, or I guess some of the supercharging responsibilities, and what your thoughts were on that, either Yaman or Omar.
Omar?
Some of the superchargers have solar, but it's mostly just for show. The cars need a massive amount of power, way more than like a tiny little solar power panel can provide. So really, they provide some shade. They kind of offset some of the power usage, but you're really going to need a big solar field to fast charge a car at the rate a supercharger has.
Oh, sorry to cut you off. I'm saying I read today that the solar team was handling some of the responsibilities of the supercharging team. So I guess previously, if you had a point of contact on the supercharging team that got laid off, now those requests are going through the solar Tesla solar team. I didn't know if you had any information on that or more details.
I mean, what solar team? Like, we have a solar team? What exactly have they been doing? There's a supercharger team handling supercharger stuff.
Okay. Doge Army.
Hey guys, Yaman, yeah, I could talk about the phone call I received if that's what you want me to do. Mention.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I minding my own business. I get a random 877 call. I obviously don't answer. It goes to voicemail, and it's a message from Charles Della as a representative of the board of directors of Tesla, and he said this is a personal business matter. Please call me back at this 877 number. So I of course think it's spam. Talked to my wife about it. She's like, "Oh, just call it back, see what it's all about." So I called the number back, and it's actually like an answering service system. And they basically said, "Hey, you have a bunch of accounts with Tesla in it. One of them, and all of them have been voted on for the proxy statement except for one." And so I'm still kind of thinking this might be spam or something. So I go, "Okay, which account?" And they actually were able to tell me all of my accounts with every family member, including my daughter. And there was actually one account in a brokerage account for my kid that had a bunch of shares that actually I had not voted. So I thought it was interesting that not only they have all this information, but they're actually making calls to people, making sure that they have voted. They did not try to encourage me to vote one way or another. I was sort of trying to pick their brains a little bit about how much how often this has been happening and how many people are calling. They didn't really give me a lot of information, but I just thought it was interesting that
They already
definitely
knew your vote when they saw your account list.
What's that?
I said they already knew your vote when they saw your account list. But wait, was this someone from Tesla or someone from your brokerage?
This was a guy. He said his name was Charles Della. I tried to look him up. I didn't find him. He said on behalf of the board of directors. So he's not he didn't have a LinkedIn profile. So I have no
That is
idea.
really weird. That is kind of odd.
Yeah, but I mean, it was legit, and there was truly one account that I didn't vote yet, and I did right away, obviously. But
Did they
yeah, they
know
knew.
your votes one way or another?
No, so they
So
just
they
could
just
tell that I
know whether
voted.
you voted or not?
They knew which accounts I had voted and which account I hadn't, and they actually could tell me the exact number of shares in the account that I didn't vote. So I assume they knew the other accounts as well.
TSLA.
Hey, Yaman. Yeah, my friend just told me the exact same thing. Tesla called him and encouraged him to vote his shares. So, yeah, they must be calling people that haven't voted yet.
Yeah, and they asked me if I needed any additional information, and I said no because I was kind of in a hurry. But in retrospect, I should have asked for more. Yeah, what do you got? see if they would try to sway me in one direction or another. But yeah, clearly they know I voted for everything before. So
I mean, I
it's
wouldn't be
interesting.
surprised if the board is trying to convince people to vote one way or another, because they do recommend for against anyway. So,
You just get a
man,
call from Elon. Hey, have
yeah,
you voted
exactly.
on my comp package yet?
I wish. Yeah, some random dude.
I mean, don't you think Elon's calling some of the institutional investors?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you can see him kind of follow some people. Like he followed someone from BlackRock. Like I assume he's definitely having conversations with major holders of Tesla. Elon's probably working down the top 10 list while, they handle all the normal retail shareholders.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
a few hundred shares for an account is that's pretty amazing.
This
yeah.
is,
I'm sure other big institutional folks like Ron Baer and Kathy Wood. I'm sure they're making calls too.
yeah, I mean, I think this is probably bullish if they're reaching out to that level. Like they can see someone hasn't voted and who has shares in what accounts and call them up. Like if I were Tesla, I'd probably say, okay, somebody who has like multiple accounts or something, they're probably going to vote with the board's recommendation. So if you just call everyone, then you might actually have a chance of achieving quorum and getting 50% of shares outstanding to show up.
Finflexity.
Yeah, I was just listening to Doge's commentary about the call, and I would just like to say that Tesla cannot know what you have placed on your account right now for your vote. So, like, that's not legally possible for them to, know your vote, but they can surely buy the data to find out whether you hold Tesla shares across different brokerages. They don't know your vote yet. They just know that you have shares.
Yeah, that makes
Thank
sense.
you.
When I called back, the guy that left the voicemail didn't answer, and it was literally some like switchboard answering service, some girl named Megan from some company or something. I asked the name like multiple times, and she kind of spoke too quick for me to hear. But it was some sort of organization that I guess is being, sponsored by
Thank
the
you.
board or something.
Nick.
So we know then that Tesla perhaps knows that if we voted or not. Is that what we
Yeah,
can conclude from this? Not necessarily what we voted
that's what
for,
Finflexity.
or
Yes,
just that we
yes.
haven't voted.
Nicholas. Brennan.
Well, I don't know why everyone thinks this is so bullish. If they're out there calling everybody, doesn't that suggest that there's some concern that this isn't going to work the way that they want? That to me is a red
Well, I
flag.
mean, it could be because you know Tesla has shown many times over the years that they like to you have to put yourself on mute when you're not talking.
Sorry.
Tesla has shown many times that they like to cover all their bases. They have plans, and they have backup plans, and backup plans to backup plans. So it's not that surprising. Also, the fact that I guess there's a general understanding out there that Tesla needs majority of the votes to move the companies, reincorporate the company in Texas. So that could be the reason as well. I'm getting a lot of hundreds, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously this is a really crucial vote. So I see people like reacting this way sometimes when they outreach to shareholders to vote. They go, "Oh my God, they're desperate. This is horrible. Like they must really know the vote's going to fail." And they don't actually know the votes. The votes are tallied by the accounting firm. So it's not that. It's just that one, they want everyone to vote because it is important. And two, in order to reincorporate the company in Texas, you need to have more than 50% of shares outstanding present in the vote for the vote to have effect. So, if let's say 60% vote to approve the move to Texas, but only 48% of shares voted, then it's voted down. You would actually rather have 55% yes, 45% no, but 51% are represented. So you need enough people to vote, even if you know they're going to vote no, that's actually still helpful to getting the Texas thing passed. So that's why they're going and making sure everybody votes. It's not about desperation or knowing it's not going to pass, but getting, 50% of Tesla shares to actually vote is a challenging task. They are going to have to do outreach to make that happen. And even then, it might not even be possible.
I don't think it's that necessarily.
You have to raise your hand. There are other people raising their hands. Everybody's welcome in this space, but everybody needs to be abide by the rules. Ahmed, go ahead.
Hey, I was actually going to say what Omar was about to say, but Omar, I thought it was if you don't vote for the move of the company, it counts as a no vote.
No, that's not the case.
Okay.
What they're trying to say is if you don't vote, they can't achieve quorum. You need enough people to be there that it's binding. Otherwise, somebody could say, okay, hey, let's reincorporate the company to, wherever, and let's not tell anyone about the vote. Only 2% of the voters show up and we win, right? So, for a major thing like moving the company from Delaware to Texas, we need most of the shareholders to give their opinion.
Finflexity.
Yeah, no, I actually had the same doubt as Amit did, but because I had read in a news article somewhere that any share that is abstaining from the Texas vote is by default a no. So, like, isn't that sir? Isn't that saying that you need 50% yes?
Ken.
The voting requirement is actually laid out on page 62 of the proxy statement. And it's very clear to move the company to Texas. There's going to be two standards applied to the vote. The first standard is the affirmative vote of a majority of the outstanding shares of stock of Tesla entitled to vote thereon. Therefore, you need 50% plus one of the outstanding shares. There are approximately 3.2 billion shares outstanding. So you need 50% plus one to meet that requirement. The second requirement is the statutory standard, where you only need the majority of the voting power. Those are two very distinct, different standards. That's why they're calling everybody to vote, because they need 50% of the outstanding shares.
Thank you, Ken. AI driver, I couldn't accept your request to speak, but I sent you an invite to speak. I think that works better sometimes for some reason. Thank you, Ken. It's good to have you on the board during this topic. Ken is also active in YouTube live chat. If you guys have any specific questions for him, you can ask him there, or you can mention him. His handle is at Ken Jacobs ESQ.
Yeah, so what Ken mentioned is even stricter than what I had said. I had said 50% need to be present, which means you could conceivably pass it with 25% of shares outstanding appearing and saying yes. but actually you need, 50% to say yes. So that's a very, very tough standard.
Ahmed.
So you need 50% plus one to vote yes, right? Which means that anyone who doesn't vote just goes against the vote, just only for the move of the company. That's how I understood the language.
We need 1.5 billion yes votes, whereas one share is one vote.
Right. So anyone who doesn't vote automatically.
Bobby.
I can't see it passing, honestly, to be
vote
honest.
Yes. Yeah.
Bobby.
Hey, is that the same rule also for the compensation package, or that's different?
Ken.
The rules are different for the compensation package. That vote is actually going to be looked at three different ways. There's three different standards. There's the NASDAQ standard, there's the bylaw standard, and there's the ratification disinterested standard. And people keep going back to saying, well, Elon's not voting in these votes. He is voting, okay? Because there's multiple standards for these votes. So just think about it. If he doesn't vote for redomestication, it's going to be very, very difficult to meet that standard because his non-voting is actually a no vote. So he's going to be voting on both of these proposals. It's just that they have the ability, the Caridio group, who's handling the vote, to look at his control number and exclude his vote out of the disinterested standard vote. That make sense?
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Kagan Kumar.
Yeah, I have a very short question. So, when will be the vote result out? And the second is like, let's suppose if it's not in favor of Elon, right? Do you have any thought on what will be the backup plan we have?
Omar.
The vote's on June 13th. I think that if it didn't pass, you could maybe just get rid of it and come up with a different plan. Elon has just said, look, all I care about is having 25% voting control. I don't really care about the economics as much. So if you can give me, for example, super voting shares, or maybe Tesla could take a stake in XAI and, give him Tesla shares essentially as compensation for his shares in XAI, or do an acquisition or something like that. He's also talked about buybacks, although that would probably be cost prohibitive. So, there's other things you can do, I think, to get him to his 25%, even if this doesn't pass. But honestly, I have a hard time believing that the majority of Tesla shareholders would, vote against his plan and, essentially vote against Elon and, say that they don't want him as CEO, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I think institutional investors will surprise to the upside. I think institutional investors will surprisingly be in favor of Elon's reinstating Elon's compensation package. I think Andrew Sorkin, right, and Jim Cramer even came out in support of Elon with respect to the compensation plan vote, which is kind of cool, interesting. Alex.
Yo, yeah. So I think Ken is explaining it correctly about like the vote, but I think it's not clear for everybody. From what I read on page 62, there's like two conditions for the vote to pass that have to both be met. And maybe Ken can correct me if I'm wrong, but the first is basically 50% plus one of all outstanding shares, whether they have voted or not. So there's no quorum here. It's just basically as long as 50% plus one vote in favor of that, and this includes Elon Musk and Kimball on that vote. So that's the first condition that has to be passed. Then the second condition is on that vote, if you remove Elon and Kimball from the vote, it still has to be 50 plus 1% that approve it. If both conditions are met, the board says this passes. Is that correct, Ken?
You're correct on the first, but you're wrong on the second. And And why you're wrong is because it's the majority of the voting power of the shares that are present in person or represented by proxy, which means that if you have 10 people in the room and 9 vote because 1 abstains, only the 9 count. So it's a different standard. It's a lower standard. It's only a majority of the people who are present at the shareholder meeting. So you need that quorum.
Yes, but if you pass the first test, then you automatically pass the second, because if all outstanding shares vote, let's make a number easier, 51%.
Yes.
Vote in favor, then the second standards is automatically met.
Yeah, it would be almost impossible not to meet the second standard if the majority 50+1 voted for the redomestication.
Yes, but so you can't pass the second one without passing the first one, and the second one, it only mentions that are not owned directly or indirectly by Mr. Musk and Kimball. It doesn't say anything about, who's present or not.
They exclude Elon and
Kimball.
Kimball, correct. Yes.
Exactly. So for example, let's take a weird scenario. That's how I think about it. Let's say Elon, and let's forget about Kimball for now. He owns very little shares. Let's say Elon owned 51% of the shares of Tesla entire. So on the first vote, he votes his shares, and of course it passes because he votes in favor of the redomestication. But then on the second vote, the second hurdle that he has to pass is if you remove his shares, the other 49%, they have to vote in favor. So basically 26% have to vote.
Okay. We're going to spend 10 more minutes on this maximum, and then we're going to switch topics.
Okay. Do you understand, Ken? It's like the second hurdle is like, if you remove Elon, there still has to be 50+1% of the remainder that have to approve of it. And that makes the second hurdle even harder.
No.
No? Okay.
No. It's the majority of the ones present in person or represented by proxy. So I'm not going to the shareholder meeting, but I voted. Therefore, I'm represented by proxy. I count in the quorum.
Okay, so the second hurdle is quorum based, like Omar mentioned.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. But if again, how could you see a scenario where the first hurdle is passed and the second is not? That's okay. So why put 2 hurdles?
Because one is required by law. Okay. And the other one is on the advice of counsel, because they're going to fight this in court. And that's what the Delaware court wants to see in order to get past the entire fairness hurdle.
Okay.
Okay.
We have other hands. We are going to move on. Bobby?
My layman understanding is 51% need to vote yes or no. And out of that 51% or more, Elon Musk shares gets taken out, and it has to be over 50% for it to pass.
Kagan Kumar.
So one question, like I was looking for online information, right? 46 with the institute, right? 30 with the retail, right? And almost 13-14% with Elon, right? But where is the rest one, like 14-15%?
Omar, do you want to answer that?
I couldn't really understand.
So the total share is 100%, right? So 46 with the institute, right? The percentage wise, right? In shares, right?
Guys, who cares? We have no idea
We're
what's going
moving
to
on.
happen until it happens. And then they're just going to tell us. So, go look at the planets with your telescope and see if Mercury's in retrograde or whatever. And maybe
Seriously,
you can
this is
predict what the vote's
ridiculous.
going to be. But other than that, there's other more interesting things going on.
There's a zillion other things we're going to talk about that are way more important. Elon isn't going anywhere. Like, relax. This is going to be over in like 2 weeks. And goodness gracious. This near-termism is insane. There's like a zillion other spaces where this subject is, discussed anyway. Like, Ken.
If you want a pretty good understanding of what the board is reasoning about these votes and why I think Elon's going to stay, I highly recommend you read pages 18 and 19 of the proxy statement. And it really gives a nice history of how all this came about and why and what efforts they've made so far to reassure Elon, and why I think Elon bought into, even if the vote is no, he's staying. I have no doubt whatsoever that he's staying. So I
Exactly.
highly recommend pages 18 and 19.
All right, pages 18 and 19. Anybody who wants to ask questions in this space about the topic need to have read those 2 pages from now on. Great. New rule. It's great to host these spaces. You can just make up rules anytime you want. It's perfect. Sergey, did you have anything to say about any other topic?
Well, I haven't read those pages, but I just was wondering if you guys know what the logic.
Honestly, I did not mute you, but I think the automated Grok came in and helped me out on that one. That was great. Wow, Grok learns really fast. Gianni.
Hey guys, separate topic, semi truck. I went to the semi truck event, went in the cab, checked it out, and one thing I noticed is it doesn't have an area to sleep in there. I don't know if it's ever been discussed on this forum. Any rationale for not putting in a cab or putting into the cab an area where the trucker can sleep? Thanks.
They are going to have a sleeper cab version. So they've been shipping day cabs so far. PepsiCo and Frito-Lay and Costco, they're really looking for day cabs. The sleeper cabs are really for, when you're doing a cross-country trip or something like that. And a lot of the charging network hasn't really been built out. So as the charging network is built out and we see more of those use cases, they are actually going to build a sleeper cab version as well. They've mentioned that in the past many years ago. And they also, discussed at the event, as you know, since you went there, that there's going to be basically a 300-mile version and a 500-mile version. So the 300-mile version, probably mostly day cabs, probably mostly day use. And I think the 500-mile version will come with sleeper cab configuration for people who want it.
Do you see a future with autonomy where the trucker is literally sleeping and the truck is driving itself?
Well, you know what I want to do is just get one of these semis and hook a trailer up and then just have it be my autonomous RV and just have it drive me around. I can sleep in the back, do whatever. I think there's a ton of use cases for this thing. They've gone into car shipping, hauling a few different things. They mentioned they're also working on getting an electrical hookup into the trailer. So you can, have a refrigerated trailer and stuff like that that runs off the truck's battery. So yeah, I think this is a super exciting product.
Okay,
Thanks,
good.
guys.
Sawyer posted, I guess this is why people are asking more about semi today. Pepsi today announced that they have taken delivery of more semi trucks, Tesla semi trucks. Pepsi said, quote, in the next several months, 50 semi trucks will operate out of its manufacturing and distribution facility in Fresno, California. Is there any other news about it, Omar?
Yeah, there were a few different tidbits on the semi that came out from the presentation. You can see them on the Out of Spec podcast, the full thing, although it was kind of echoey. Let me scroll back on my timeline a little bit and see what I wrote down. Yeah, so it looks like one thing that they said is that the semi charging station costs about $500,000. They also said that Tesla's planning a 50,000 unit per year production of the semi for the initial phase. They said the Tesla semi has now driven 3.5 million miles across all the customers, which is, obviously small number of miles. FSD drives more miles than that every day. But, for an electric semi, they're really obviously using this thing in the real world. they're seeing uptime greater than 95% for the initial fleet. So, these are obviously prototype trucks, um, early units that they're working closely with the partners with, and they're seeing uptime of greater than 95%. So, really speaks to the reliability of electric. Then Pepsi is ordering an additional 50 Tesla semis, and the Tesla semi charging network is running at megawatt speeds, and then they're going to be doing the 300 and 500 mile version. So that's all the notes I had.
Okay, great. Tesla stock is up 7%. The markets are about to close in a couple minutes. Hell of a day for the stock. And on days like this, usually we get a lot of crowd, and today is no different. I recommend that people come in every day and learn about the fundamentals of the company instead of coming in when the stock is up, trying to figure out what happened that day. AI driver. And I would love to ask you more about FST's fundamentals, how it's doing, version updates. More than welcome every day. Yoda, go ahead.
Yeah, Omar, I was just wondering if Coca-Cola might be looking at Pepsi and looking at kind of the cost efficiency and looking to order some trucks for Warren Buffett.
I would hope so. I am a huge Coca-Cola fan, and I mean, this is obviously a small scale, so it's not really going to make that much of a difference to Pepsi's bottom line, but it's definitely good PR. You definitely save a lot on gas, and the drivers love driving it, so it makes it easier to find a driver. And you know what? The government has a $40,000 tax credit per electric semi. So do the math. $40,000 times the 50 semis that Pepsi just ordered. That's going to be just a massive tax savings alone, a massive fuel savings. A lot of these companies are now looking at the greenhouse gas emissions of the company. If you can show that you're bringing that down, that brings in some of those ESG investors. So, I mean, you're seeing all these major brands, Costco, Frito-Lay, PepsiCo, others signing up. Tesla also mentioned during the talk that they're using it for their own workloads. So they build batteries in Giga Nevada and they ship them to Fremont. That's always been diesel trucks, right? So you think about it, it's kind of ironic. You're putting together the Tesla Model 3, an electric car, and you've got a diesel semi moving the battery pack from Nevada to Fremont. So now they're just running Tesla semis, and they're really putting them to work. They're just running them back and forth at many times what anybody else would use it. And they're just sort of eating their own dog food and using it for their own internal shipping and using that to sort of inform the product development. So I think customers are really liking it, but it's also just pretty useful internal to Tesla too.
Okay, great. SpaceX first video call on X completed through Starlink direct-to-cell satellites from unmodified mobile phones. Starlink is, customers seem to be growing pretty fast. All right, we are at the halftime mark. Halftime mark. This space is possible only because of my patrons. If you'd like to support the space, the link is at the top of your screens. After one more hour, Patreon subscribers will get another half hour of bonus, basically a recap of what we talked about here today, as well as some macroeconomic discussions and whatever questions they have. I want to make sure patrons get all their questions answered.
Yeah, the Starlink thing's pretty cool. I mean, they talked about like text messages, but showing off a video call, which is a pretty high bandwidth application, where you have a cell phone, unmodified cell phone, talking directly to a satellite, that is pretty crazy. Now, obviously this bandwidth is probably going to be split up within a bunch of phones. So you may not be able to do a video call in the real world if there's other phones out there sharing the same satellite as you, but it's pretty promising. Obviously, every Tesla vehicle has a cell radio in it. And this is actually going to enable Tesla vehicles, including, a future robotaxi vehicle or whatever, even if it gets into a coverage dead zone, as long as there's a clean line of sight to the sky, it should be able to connect to the internet via Starlink. And even your existing car, even a 2018 Model 3 or whatever, should be able to connect to Starlink because it doesn't require any new hardware other than the cell radio you already have, which is pretty amazing.
Yoda.
Omar, do you think the robotaxi, the purpose-built robotaxis, would benefit from a Starlink terminal or client terminal? And what would that form factor be reduced down to?
I don't think so. It seems like they're actually adapting the satellite so that you don't need any new hardware on the cars. Now, the satellite is really only a fallback, right? 90% of the time, when you're in an urban environment, you're going to have a cell tower there and you're going to want to talk to that. The satellite's only really for when you're in the middle of nowhere. You know, you sent your robo taxi out to the middle of nowhere for some reason, maybe, and there's no other cell connection. Then you can connect to the satellite as a fallback. And I imagine this technology will only get better and better, more and more advanced. And the cars will probably just be able to use the hardware they have and connect. I could see them maybe adding Starlink down the line, but right now it's like $1,000. It's very expensive. It's a new product. Another production step on the car, and it's not really that useful because you're using cellular almost all the time. So I think probably keep the car cellular, have the satellites update to support it.
Good. Did you see this new Cyber Beast listing? I think this is the first Cyber Beast sale with no reserve on carsonbids.com. Current bid is $140,000. It's probably going to go much higher, for much higher than that. Kind of goes to show how
Yeah,
much demand there is for this product. It's really incredible.
it's a huge hit. I mean, people love it, and Joe Tegmeyer mentioned he was seeing about 800 units a week coming out, which I'm not sure how accurate that is, but if so, they're on track to be the best-selling electric truck in the country, which is pretty amazing given they just this is their second quarter of production. So,
Wait, Joe
I mean,
Tegmeyer said 200 a day, right?
I'm not sure what exactly he said, but
Yeah,
I
we talked about
think
it yesterday. He said 200 daily. So I guess that's significantly above what Tesla said on the earnings call. I think they said something around 1,000.
yeah,
They
they
reached
said
a
1,000 a
1,000.
week.
Yeah, in a week. So I guess that was more about kind of burst rate, but they seem to have significantly increased beyond that in the last couple of weeks here, which is great. If we take Joe Tagmeyer's 200 daily figure um, as correct.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it suggests that not only is the production capacity above the burst rate, but also that they have 4680 supply actually growing ahead of production.
Absolutely. And I think, that could be part of the reason why the stock is rising today quite a bit. 4680 supply is, of course, very important to the future of Tesla. And Cybertruck is very important to this year and the future of Tesla. And in my opinion, by my estimate, 1,000 a week sustained rate is when Cybertruck production becomes break even. So it looks like they achieved that in April, May. So now from here on out, Cybertruck will add to the bottom line, increasingly so in the coming years. Yoda.
Yeah, Omar, now that you've spent some time in your Cybertruck, and barring the lack of FSD, do you think this is a niche product or something that could basically hit the F-150 type of volume, both in terms of for existing truck owners and maybe creation of a new segment of previously non-truck owners getting into the Cybertruck?
I don't think it's a niche product. I think the market perceives it as a niche product, in part because its styling is so radical and other factors. They kind of dismiss it. But it's really Tesla's flagship for North America right now. And I expect them to bring it in some form to other countries too. So it's just the best Tesla in many ways. It's a lot of fun to drive. You got technology like steer by wire that's not on any other Tesla yet. And you just have this really big vehicle that's comfortable. It's got tons of space. You can throw a bunch of stuff in it, but it still drives like a Tesla. It's more fuel efficient than a Prius. It's fast, right? You got a version that goes 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. So it's kind of just the best Tesla. I could see if production volume was high enough that they could actually sell more Cybertrucks in the US than the Model Y. And the price point, when you look at $60,000 in 2025 for the base version that goes 250 miles and 80,000 for the long range, that brings it to about 53,000 after the tax credit, which is very much within reach for a new truck, especially when you consider the special depreciation and other tax benefits you can get for having a vehicle that's over 6,000 pounds. So I think, just look at it really transcends truck buyers in many ways. Many of the downsides of having a truck aren't present in this thing. You don't have to compromise on fuel efficiency. You don't have to compromise on handling. You don't have to compromise on having a nice, I mean, it drives like a luxury sports car. So I don't think people have realized just how popular this thing is going to be. They look at the outside and they think, oh, look at that weird thing. But what you really need to be doing is looking at the inside and looking at what it feels like to drive it. And it's really, I think, going to be a big hit in North America. And you're seeing that. You're already seeing, every celebrity trying to get their hands on one. You're seeing them go above market prices at auction. This is another hit from Tesla, despite all the bears saying it was going to be a flop.
So Tesla doesn't need to work on a conventional form factor for a truck, in your opinion. This one's good.
I mean, we'll see, but I think it seems like their bet really paid off of let's do something unconventional. It turns out people were really thirsty for something different. Like people it's just so many people playing it safe. And let's not go too radical for so many years that people were just so bored and they just love somebody trying something new. I mean, I've never seen people magnetically drawn to a product the way you are with this product. Like, it's not a good car for introverts. Everywhere you go, people are asking you about it. You're talking to all these random people. Hey, how do you like it? Oh, can I see inside? Oh, can my kid take a picture with your Cybertruck? He needs to send his friends at school this picture, you know? Somebody comes up to me with their phone. Hey, can you take a picture of me with your Cybertruck? Like, you've never really seen this for any other product. It's really like $1 billion viral campaign for EVs. And
Right.
I think it challenges what people think of an EV as. It's not this small little shitty car. It's this awesome vehicle, and oh, it just happens to be electric.
Exactly. Jimmy.
I was going to say Tesla did a fantastic job with the Cybertruck and how they're marketing it. They're doing the same thing they did with their original Teslas, was come out with a high-priced one. That's your luxury Bugatti type vehicle. And then later on in production, ramp it up, put a single motor in it or put dual motors in it, but for a cheaper price. And then that's where you're going to start seeing people use it as a utility vehicle. Ford and all these other car manufacturers do the same thing. Like if you go look at Ram, if you go look at Toyota, they all have a luxury truck that isn't really used as a truck.
Thank you, Jimmy. Let's talk about the insured units in China, Omar. Tesla results for last week surprised to the upside, even above Troy's estimates, with 13,800 registered, more than 9,800 registered last week. That's a big jump week over week. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think we kind of saw some slowness in the early parts of the quarter. It seems to be picking up a little bit. Some people had speculated that the 0% interest rate and 0% down could be part of why we're seeing an uptick. You had said that it's probably too soon to see the full effect of that, and let's wait for the coming weeks. But I think sort of the prognosis of Tesla in China is starting to change a little bit. The narrative, especially among the bears, has been Tesla is eroding in China. There's all this competition. There's all these new EVs. And Tesla is not going to be a major player in the Chinese EV market long term, or the Chinese auto market. But you're actually, you're seeing pretty impressive results. You look at all of the sort of luxury brands, the foreign luxury brands, and Tesla's number one. They're outselling, Mercedes, BMW, anything like that. We're talking gas cars or EVs. And then you look at the NEVs, they're actually the number two brand behind BYD. And BYD, obviously sells almost all of their cars domestically. They sell to state governments, municipalities, stuff like that. And then you got Tesla, a foreign company, as number two. And then, some other Chinese tweeters here on X also mentioned, well, if you look at the cars that are above 200,000 yuan, the Tesla's just dominating the market, right? So why has BYD been so successful? I think in part because, first of all, they've improved their product a lot. It's become sort of much closer to a Tesla experience, although obviously it's still much more clunky. And two, they've addressed those lower price segments. So there's obviously a huge market appetite for a more affordable EV. So I'm just excited thinking about, okay, when Tesla has those more affordable models, it sounds like they're making progress on them and they actually bring them to market. Imagine what kind of sales growth they could potentially see with a brand like Tesla that is, I think a very loved brand. It has a lot of sort of brand equity there. And then you look at the launch of FSD supervised and eventually the launch of robo taxis within China. China is the largest auto market in the world, and it's also the most tech forward auto market in the world. They care about stuff like software a lot more than other markets. And I think when they can actually get that out there, I'm hoping they can get FSD supervised out by the end of the year in China. And if they can do that, that's going to be a strong differentiator that, along with the lower cost models, I think really changes the outlook for Tesla in China. This isn't really, I think, a story of decline, but a story where there's a lot of untapped potential here that is going to be unleashed in the coming quarters, I think.
Great, thank you. In other news, Tesla has increased its 72-month loan rate APR in the US to 1.99% from 0.99%. 36, 48, and 60-month loan terms are still 0.99%. China's Li Auto delayed pure electric SUV launch, and Nissan paused production plans to build its EVs in the US. Automotive News reported on Tuesday, citing a memo sent to auto suppliers. Yet another legacy automaker canceling plans, delaying plans to produce EVs. If it's not for Tesla, there is no transition. So better go and vote your shares. Bargersville's fleet of 13 Tesla police cars saves taxpayers about $80,000 a year. Wow. A local fleet of 13 Tesla police cars saves taxpayers about $80,000 a year in fuel costs compared to gas-powered police vehicles. That's incredible.
Does it actually save the taxpayer money? Let's be real.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, the government likes to spend money and they like to say they're saving you money, but then they go spend all that money.
No, I'm pretty sure this is actually going to save them money. Like, if you think about a police car, it's not like your car where you drive 12,000 miles. This thing is being driven all the time. And when one guy's done driving it, he gives it to the next guy, and then that guy drives it, right? So these things are being driven several times more than your average vehicle. And they're obviously burning a ton of gas. Sometimes they're driving fast. That's obviously less fuel efficient. So a lot of times they're just sort of idled, they're stopped or whatever. They've got the engine on and they're just burning gas and not even moving. So you eliminate that gas expense, and it's obviously a huge fuel savings for them. One of the other things they pointed out is they're also seeing a savings in depreciation. When they sell one of their gas powered cars, they're able to get about $5,000 for it. But their 2019 Model 3 that they sold when it got to its end of life, they got about $17,000 for it. So they're also seeing a savings in depreciation as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Jimmy's point is the government will spend it anyway, but that doesn't mean Teslas are not saving. Like Teslas are saving money. What the government does with that money, that local government, is just their decision. And I guess in Sawyer's tweet, he also mentioned they're going to hire 2 additional cops. So there you go. Yoda.
Yeah, I hope the law enforcement institutions work with Tesla to develop something so they don't have to have those laptops, um, installed or in the dashboards. It just looks weird. And I think if the fleet can also communicate to each other, there's going to be some interesting software applications for the police to kind of collaborate on certain chases. What I'm gonna miss is for sure the movie scenes where the police car explodes. That's not gonna happen anymore.
It's actually kind of interesting. You've got companies like Unplugged Performance here in Hawthorne and also Oracle, and they're taking these Teslas because they know police officers want them for the fuel savings, and they're outfitting them. So they have, for example, a solution where you can use the Tesla's main screen as the computer. And they have essentially like an HDMI switch where they can push a button and switch back and forth between the car and between the, Windows UI that has their Oracle database or whatever. So they are actually sort of designing these in a Tesla specific way. And there's companies like Unplugged that are actually specializing in building Tesla police cars. They're actually doing some Cybertruck police cars for one police department, which is going to be, I think, pretty badass.
Yeah, can you imagine Cybertruck pulling right up at you? You don't want to mess up with that. You don't want to mess with that. All right, we're going to
You
take some
just pull over,
Yeah,
surrender,
exactly.
hands up.
Exactly. We're going to take a couple of questions and we're going to talk some robotaxis after that. Jennifer, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for having me. So there's a Monroe Live video where they show one of the Model Ys that was converted into a police car, and they showed how there's a switch that they can flip that will then turn the touchscreen into a Windows laptop. So it's pretty interesting to see how they can just do that, and I think that's really smart. So yeah, it's on Monroe Live. It's titled Tesla Model Y Police Car Model PD, sorry, not Monroe, but Model PD on
Thank you,
Monroe
Jennifer.
Live. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Jimmy.
I don't think it's an unrealistic thing that Tesla could sell the US government over 100,000 Model Ys for police vehicle, emergency vehicles. Years ago, probably, but they could probably dedicate a factory directly to make 100,000 police vehicles, retrofit the inside. It doesn't seem that crazy. While they're doing the interior, they basically just switch it right over there on the line into a police vehicle.
Omar?
Yeah, this is actually kind of a massive gravy train, not just in the US, but in China, which is just these government vehicles, right? The government uses a lot of vehicles for their government duties, right? So whether it's the police department or the federal government, right? The FBI buys cars, different federal agencies. And you look at Ford's margins, or you look at their earnings release, and you look at the margins on their sales of cars to consumers. And then you look at the margin in their Ford Pro business, which is really selling to commercial customers and governments. It's a massive difference. Like Ford's bread and butter is doing these large contracts with governments, with cities, with the federal government, and just selling them fleets of vehicles. And the thing is, these guys just keep renewing, right? So they have a certain schedule. Cars get out of the fleet, they get sold, new cars get procured on a regular basis. And this money just keeps coming in very regularly. It's a very good business. Similarly in China, you've got BYD selling a bunch of cars to local governments in China, to the national government, things like that. And a lot of people have looked at the business and said, okay, if you take out sort of the support from the government, what do their financials really look like? But I think it is a growing business potentially for Tesla. They haven't really had the vehicles that these governments need often, right? They haven't had a truck until recently. Um, they've only had smaller EVs. The Model Y is even, just in the last few years. I think there is a huge growth opportunity in just selling these government agencies on going electric. And you've got sort of a huge recurring business there from this government procurement around the world.
Great, thank you. AR.
Hi, everyone. I just ordered a Model Y, and I wanted to offer some anecdotal evidence about the interest rate of 0.99%. I think it's being underestimated how positive of an effect this will be on sales, because I started my process of going to the Tesla store about 4 weeks ago. It was comparatively quiet, not a whole lot of people. And then when they announced that promotion, I saw a lot more traffic at the stores. It definitely drove my decision to make the purchase. Me struggling like that manner.
AR,
I think it
your
also
connection is bad. So as I understand it, you have anecdotal evidence that from the store that you went to, traffic has increased. You believe the subvented rates are having a positive impact on the sales, and you compared it to about a few weeks ago. And is there anything else you want to add? You're on mute.
sorry. Yeah, the last thing I wanted to add was that I think it's going to impact buyers who have money. They're just being smart with their money. It's not just for the people who are struggling for the lower income, for the lower monthly payment, but people with money. I mean, if you're getting money at 1%, that's free money, whether you're invested in stock, Tesla, or otherwise, or if you can just get 5% at the bank. If all of a sudden you can buy a car with basically free money, that just drives a lot of those people to make that decision if they otherwise were considering, oh, well, I don't want to buy a car now. I'd rather leave it in Tesla stock. Now it becomes a driver for really the whole spectrum of whether people have money or not. I just wanted to make that distinctive point as well.
Thank you. Omar?
Yeah, I've also seen some anecdotal evidence that it's having a positive effect. We were just in a space this morning, the Wolf space that he does every Tuesday, and there was a woman there who's an investor at Kim, and she was always coming into the space and talking about Rivian and how she loves Rivian. It's the mom car, and she said, I'm going to get a Tesla with this 0.99% financing. I think for smart people, investors, people who are financially savvy, interest is something where, okay, I'm paying for the car. That's one thing if the car is $40,000 or whatever, but interest feels like a waste, right? People don't like wasting money. So the effect on elasticity of demand of a rate cut seems to be potentially more powerful than a price cut, because people are jumping to get the introductory rate while it's available, and they feel, okay, I'm not wasting this money, which isn't actually the value of the car. It's not going to, my car is going to depreciate, and the interest obviously doesn't factor into that. Even if you have a lower priced car, they still feel like, okay, I'm paying 6% interest, 9% interest, depending on what my credit is. When you have that lower rate, it really appeals to people who are fiscally savvy and understand that you don't want to buy a car when interest rates are high. And she had mentioned, look, I have $30,000. She said, I'm blown away by this car. It's such a high end car. I can get it for $30,000 with the tax credit, and I can take that $30,000 and I can keep it invested in the market. I can generate returns with that capital, and I don't have to pay for the car all up front. I've got a low interest loan.
Jeff?
Oh yeah. Hey, I was going to quickly share similar sentiment. I was at a local service center, and they had bumped my delivery appointment, and they kind of just mentioned to me, like for a Monday, they had like 70 vehicle deliveries in just that one day. So it looks like this 0.99 activities really picked up. And from what I'm looking at, the people that in the community that count cars, do the VIN counting, they're giving it a pretty fairly big credit or boost in North America, both out of Austin and Fremont. So this should be interesting to see how it plays through. From a supply chain perspective, it's awesome for it to be in the middle of the quarter. It helps with any kind of sag and utilization. It helps with inventory build out and any burnout from the prior quarter. So it's great timing for where Tesla placed this promotion too. That's it.
Why are you breathing heavy? What are you up to, Jeff?
Because he's getting a Cyber Beast this week. He's so excited.
I am pretty excited, but I wasn't stationary there, so yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm just, making sure you're okay. Sawyer posted, Morgan Stanley's Adam Jonas has released a new Tesla note. Elon Musk needs Tesla more than ever. Quote, AI's appetite. Let's actually read let me just read this note real quick. This note is on your screens on YouTube. Elon Musk needs Tesla more than ever. AI's appetite for capital and data increased Tesla's importance within the Muskonomy. As investors question if the CEO's commitment is less or more, we believe Elon needs Tesla more than ever before. Why do we believe Tesla is needed now more than ever? AI is a capital game. The broader collection of Elon Musk businesses may collectively invest many tens of billions of dollars in AI infrastructure in the coming years. Cost of capital is deterministic for AI supremacy. A Tesla without AI would set a precedent that would increase the cost of capital across Elon's other AI endeavors. Tesla's success lowers the cost of capital of the Muskonomy, in our opinion. Tesla's failure raises the cost of capital for the Muskonomy, in our opinion. In addition to the cost of capital, we believe on a fundamental level that the data, infrastructure built, and path to monetization within Tesla is critical to Musk's seemingly adjacent AI efforts. Data captured by the car, both inside and out, enhance AI learning development. The auto TAM in and of cars is one of the largest in the world, 12 trillion miles, hundreds of billions of vehicle hours. And the car's unique attributes, mobile server, compute, thermal, energy storage may be seen as more critical in the emerging AI-driven hybrid compute ecosystem. This last point has implications for autos broadly, not just Tesla. The lines are blurring between phone robot, phone mobile AI assistant. Over time, we expect to see Mr. Musk's efforts within social media, Gen AI space, communications, automotive transportation become more conspicuously linked. Omar, what do you think? And then Yoda.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Jonas. I think everybody sort of knows these things, but first off, I don't think Elon actually wants to leave the company. But Judge McCormick has kind of made this point of saying this guy loves Tesla. He's never going to leave the company. The supposed background of this deal that, he needs to be given this compensation package in order to secure him for the next 10 years is BS in her view. So I think he kind of needs to make the case that, look, you know, I am not comfortable leading Tesla to be an AI giant. But what Adam Jonas is, and there's some truth to that, obviously. I think he may leave. But what Adam Jonas is essentially saying in this note is calling his bluff a little bit and saying, he needs Tesla, right? If Tesla is not successful, that impacts his other businesses too. If he leaves Tesla, that impacts his other businesses too. Tesla may be very useful in terms of their build out of AI capacity. I mean, XAI is doing a multi-billion-dollar deal with Oracle to get infrastructure from them. I'm sure he'd rather be doing business with Tesla if Tesla had a cloud service or something like that, and really sort of utilizing. He says it's bringing down Tesla's cost to capital, essentially meaning that investors are more willing to invest in these companies given Tesla's successful and dominating in AI. It sort of makes him look better, right? So, I think there are sort of valid points on both sides. Obviously, you don't want to just revoke his compensation package and say, whatever, we don't need to pay him, he's going to stay. But it's not really as simple as he can just get up and leave. He is, deeply interwoven with Tesla, and his other companies are as well. And he really obviously needs Tesla to be successful. It's the cornerstone of his personal wealth. I think that's obvious to everybody, but I think this is Jonas really responding to concerns that Musk could leave. And reading between the lines, he's trying to say, I don't see it happening.
Good, thank you. Yoda. Yoda. Unmute yourself, you may.
Sorry. Yeah, I forgot the mute button there. So yeah, Elon isn't getting any younger. He's 52. I mean, who am I to say? But he is 52. And it took him 20 years to build the revenue stream to $100 billion a year at Tesla. Let's say for his next venture, it takes him, a third of the time, half the time, it's still about a decade. And AI is obviously a very capital intensive, business to get into if you're into solving AGI for the particular vertical. So yeah, um, he's not gonna. It's not gonna be in his best interest to leave Tesla uh, because it is that cash cow that's gonna feed into the R&D, capital intensive R&D. I think what the best case scenario is that he stays in Tesla, um, and basically continues to solve FSD and then lead that into Optimus. If you were to look at Steve Jobs, if he was still alive, and he wants to pursue AI, but there's some drama at Apple, would he just let go of Apple or would he fight? And I think that's a very interesting parallel to look at.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that people think there's any chance Elon might leave, which is like it's almost like, do you not know this guy at all?
And like now of all times, like imagine he finally gets to the point where they're solving FSD and he's like, I think I'm going to give up now. I mean, I think he'd have a pretty hard time doing that. I think he goes into that lab full of robots doing tasks, and he's even more excited than we are. He tries FSD 12.4 and 12.5, and I think, he sees probably way more potential in it than an average user can. So I think it would be probably very hard for him to separate from the company, given what they're finally achieving.
Well, someone
All right,
remind me of the. Oh, sorry.
we have 25 minutes to go. 25 minutes to go. I'm keeping these spaces, daily spaces, to 2 hours max. After which I host about a half hour, 45-minute for patrons, kind of after party. That link is at the top of your screens. My patrons make this space possible. This space is free and open for everybody. I don't block a single person. And that's because of my patrons. So if you'd like to support the space, you may join Patreon at the top of your screens. Jeff, then Doge Army, then Finflexity.
Yeah, by the way, I didn't know the rule on hand, so apologize. Just quickly, I was just saying, it just seems like I don't hear this thesis coming back of, if the Tesla stock price drops below a certain point, Elon is going to get margin called on his loans. Well, doesn't that seem like, it seems like it's just backwards that he's going to leave Tesla, but then he's going to get, then the stock would drop. I just don't understand. Like none of this fits or works together, but it seems like everybody wants to play both sides of that argument. I just heard that as a Tesla Q kind of, talking point before, but you can't use it on both sides of like, oh, he's going to be disgruntled and leave. I mean, anything could happen, but okay, well then you can't say the other thing too about, well, the stock drops. He's going to get like, he's not going to destroy his whole capital structure at the same time. So anyway,
Doge Army.
Yeah, just quickly, the notion that an activist judge and a freaking shareholder with 9 shares could set the ball rolling for Elon to get pissed off and leave the company is crazy. Not going to happen. Thank you.
Finflexity.
I just wanted to ask the note that you were reading, was that a new note or is that something from before? I couldn't find it.
Omar.
Check Sawyer's page. He tweeted it out. It's a note from Adam Jonas that he came out with yesterday. I mean, this guy's writing a note every day. You know,
Really?
it seems like it.
He is definitely prolific. I mean, there's no question about that. Colorful language too. I mean, he's spot on with this one, I think. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anything else we need to touch on? I saw you reposted Sam Altman's emails to Elon in June 2015. Would you like to summarize that for us?
Well, he's just talking about starting OpenAI. There's nothing particularly interesting there, but I mean, OpenAI is kind of in an interesting situation right now. Everybody loved them a few months ago. They've had a recent series of scandals. Obviously, there was, the issue with the equity vesting, where they were supposedly clawing back equity from employees if they didn't sign a non-disparagement agreement, which is kind of crazy. Then you got this Scarlett Johansson situation yesterday. I think the news might have broken after the space ended, where Scarlett Johansson says that they ripped off her voice, and Sam called her a couple days before saying, "Hey, can we use your voice?" And she said no, and they decided to kind of, I don't know, hire some voice actor who sounds similar to her apparently, but everyone kind of, yeah, just viewed it as being her voice. And then you've got Jan leaving too, Ilya Sutskever leaving, saying it's because OpenAI strayed from their mission and they're not focused on safety anymore. So it's really an interesting time at OpenAI. He's got a few crises on his hands that he needs to respond to right now.
Thank you for the summary. If you're requesting to speak and I don't get a chance to accept a request to speak, you may always leave a reply. I'm monitoring the replies. About Tesla posted a new major wave of the spring release. Rollout went out this afternoon, going to about 3% of the Tesla fleet. So the spring release is continuing to go wide. Nick Cruz Paten posted V12 UI update in the new Model 3 Performance. Congrats to the owner. He's one of the first to receive the new Model 3 Performance in the US. So the delivery started, huh, Omar?
Yeah, that's going to be material. This is a hot product. I've got one on order. Everybody wants one of these things. This is another product like the Cybertruck where they have pricing power. I think there's been a lot of speculation as to why Tesla's seen some sales weakness. And I really think it just comes down to people want the new models. That's really what it seems like. The models they have, like the Model Y that haven't been updated, aren't matching up with demand. So there's going to be, I think, a little bit of a transition there in getting the supply of products consumers want. But, eventually they're even going to update the Model Y, have a lot of these same features. And there's probably quite a bit of pent up demand. People who are waiting to upgrade to the 3, but they were waiting for this new performance to come out. And now that it's come out, and especially now that it's got the point of sale credit, people are jumping on it.
Kimberly, in the replies, in regards to our discussion around police cars and police departments getting Teslas, she says they need Teslas because they can't touch Tesla drivers otherwise. It's pretty funny. Jimmy.
Do we have like 2 minutes to talk about the spring release?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I don't understand it. I have an Intel Atom chip. I know I'm not getting the big release, but my cars just got 2 updates Well, my Model Y got an update and my Model 3 got an update, but my Model Y does not have full self-driving and it seemed to get more features. And then my Model 3, which has full self-driving and it's on its latest model, has less features. Features including like the Bluetooth, the Wi-Fi, the change to the menu called like dynamics, naming conventions. There's also a nav icon in my Model Y. I just don't really understand it because they don't release their change notes. They just say minor bug fixes.
Omar, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what you're asking exactly. You have the same software version on your two cars and they're a little bit different on the two cars.
Correct.
So what are your two cars? One's Intel Atom, one's Ryzen.
No, they're both Intel Atoms 2019 and 2020. So they're running the same chip and they're both on the latest version of full self-driving in the 3 and the whatever version on the Model Y, which is a non-full self-driving vehicle. They're basically both up to date is what I'm trying to say, but they are very different. The menus have changed. I've lost the regenerative braking. It moved from the horizontal view from the vertical view. It never did that on my 3. I have a nav icon, which doesn't really make any sense in my Model Y. Like it's an icon that shows my map, but my map's always up. So I'm not really sure why that's in there.
Yeah, I think the FSD hasn't gotten the spring update yet, or a lot of the FSD cars haven't gotten the spring update. So your FSD car will eventually get the spring update features too, but they just haven't gotten that out to everyone yet.
Okay, so my FSD is updated to the latest version, which is 12.3.6, but it just hasn't gotten the overall update because it's probably getting pushed on a different software version. Okay, that makes more sense.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. X01.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I own two Model 3s. One is my wife's and one is mine. One is on 3.10 and one is on 8.9. I've talked about this one other time before, but I've been doing some research in looking through TeslaFi's files, and I'm noticing that since both cars are LFPs, I'm not sure if anybody can answer this question or not, but it seems like does anybody have the software, the new, anything higher than 11.4.9 for full self-driving or the new update for an LFP Model 3? Anyone out there? That's the only question I have because I think it has something to do with the battery type. Maybe that's why they're not pushing it, but there's still 24% of us that are on 8.9 approximately. That's my only question.
Yeah, I don't think it has to do with the LFP. It's really just making sure they're rolling it out safely, being able to do some A/B tests. So look at how 11's performing alongside 12 to ensure that it's really better, or getting some data on how much better it really is. So it's kind of just luck of the draw. It's not really about your car. And sometimes you get unlucky, and you're in that last 25%. So they should hopefully have that update out to you soon. If it's not out in another week or so, try making a service ticket and say that it hasn't gotten a software update, and maybe they can take a look at it. Sometimes the update gets stuck or something. But I would probably expect that probably within the next week or two, you're just going to get the update on that car.
I appreciate that information very much. Thank you. And I just wanted to let you guys know that last night, my wife, her car updated to 3.25, whatever the one that ends in 25 is. And they're pushing that one on to 14.7 from what I can see. So, and some of those are going to 14.6. So yeah, I don't care. Look, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm happy disengaging on 11 if I have to. I understand it's not AI yet.
Okay,
But,
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel your pain. There are some people who are still on FSD 11 and they're kind of losing their minds. Like, what the hell? Why are we still on the software? So hopefully they all get updated soon.
Okay, 15-minute mark. We have 15 minutes to go. Let's talk a little about robotaxis. Omar, so there's been a couple of sightings about Tesla referencing in the last video Tesla posted. They obviously shared screenshots of the app they're building. This seems, and then we also saw a screenshot around maybe a two-seater design, hardware design as well. What do you make of these recent sightings?
Well, it sounds like they're going to be building a driverless robotaxi. So, I mean, this is, probably going to be the most disruptive Tesla product ever, not just in terms of what it is, which is you know, a vehicle without steering wheel and pedals, but the way that it's manufactured. This is going to be the first vehicle using the unbox process. And I think they're really taking a smart strategy here. When you look at the other robo taxis that are larger vehicles, four seats kind of facing each other, you're staring at a stranger, it's awkward, they're weird, they're staring back at you, it's uncomfortable. Having a personal vehicle, one or two people, which covers, most of the trips people need to make, which can take you where you want to go with the lowest cost per mile possible. That's really what this is all about, I think. They're trying to say, how can we get the lowest cost per mile physically possible? And yeah, I think it's really interesting. It's not trying to be as good as your 3 or Y necessarily. It's not trying to really cannibalize those products by just being the same thing but cheaper and better. It's really a different purpose-built vehicle, really just built entirely around the ride-hailing application and driving that cost per mile as low as possible so that they can, so that no one can compete with them.
This app is looking pretty good. I mean, when they put these screenshots, do you think the app is ready, Omar?
I think they have a prototype of the app working internally and they're using it within the company. But obviously, it's not released yet. When they do release it, they're going to release it right into the same Tesla app they use to control your car today. So anyone who doesn't own a Tesla can download the Tesla app. As a matter of fact, if you're trying to sell your friend on a Tesla, just have them download the Tesla app. They added a demo feature now, so you can see what it would be like to have a Tesla, and you can schedule a demo drive in there. But they're going to add another function. You can also use it to supercharge a non-Tesla, but they're also going to add essentially a ride-hailing function, compete directly with Uber. I'm not sure if they're going to wait until unsupervised or they're actually working on launching a supervised service. We'll have to see. I wouldn't be surprised by either. I think it's kind of 50-50 what they decide to do strategically. But yeah, they're going to essentially go head to head with Uber and Lyft. And when you really see the design of this app, it is offering a level of vertical integration and control that you've never been able to get from Uber and Lyft. When you call that ride, you can set the temperature, you can turn on the seat heaters, you can control the music, load up your profile, have all the settings exactly the way you want it, and control the details of that car, see its location in real time, just like it's your own car. And that level of integration where the person making the ride hailing service is also making the car, is also making the self-driving software, that's what's really difficult for anyone else to match.
Exactly. And a lot of people, industry veterans, like to criticize Tesla for having this simplistic design inside, minimalist design that allows Tesla to update most of the car, all of the car, with an over-the-air update, which I believe is going to be very material in a robotaxi future that no one else will be able to replicate because they haven't been building cars for the last few years with this minimalistic design.
Yeah, I mean, they've learned everything that can go wrong with mass production. They've felt the pain of a part not being there and it's slowing down production. And they've learned over the years. I mean, this is the product of really decades of work since the company was founded in 2003, decades of learnings and how to build a car efficiently. And they've really hyped up this unbox process. They've said it's going to be a revolution in how a vehicle is made. You can make different parts and put them together. So it'll be interesting to hear more about that. But really, if you're trying to dominate in the robotaxi market, like in freight shipping, for example, the only thing that matters is price, right? Because you've got a truck doing freight shipping, nobody cares what kind of truck it is, what the truck looks like, any of those details. If it can get my stuff from point A to point B, it can move my trailer, I don't care, right? So the only thing that matters is price. You can't say, hey, I've got a nice truck. The only thing people care about is cost per mile. So if that's really what it's about, right? And the market is very confused about this. They think it's about who has the most LiDARs. That's going to be the company that makes the most money. But it's really about who has the lowest cost per mile, who can get the most cars out there, and who can actually serve that market demand. And in order to do it, you need, I think, kind of a radical vehicle design. It probably does need to be purpose built from autonomy. And it just, everything needs to be focused on just getting that cost per mile as low as possible. If people want to pay more to get, let's say, a Cybertruck or a Model Y or a Model X or some bigger, nicer vehicle, there'll be a market for that too. I think you'll be able to pay more for that. But the company that really dominates is going to be that company that has the best cost per mile, best availability, and having a purpose-built robotaxi vehicle, I think, is going to be crucial to achieving that cost per mile. Their target is really to cut half the cost out of the Model 3 and Model Y.
Exactly. Thank you, Omar, for the great summary. 7 minutes to go. 7 minutes to go until the end of this space. I'm not sure if we're going to get to everybody. I accepted a few other people. There's going to be another 30, 45-minute after hour for patrons only. Patrons allow this space to be free and open for everybody. I don't block anybody. Anybody can join. If you'd like to make sure you get your question answered, thoughts heard, you can join the after hours party. The link to Patreon is at the top of your screens. Bull 2035, go ahead.
Hey, I like the robo-taxi design, how easy it is to clean. That's going to be a big deal. And replace that seat too, being just one complete seat. They can pull them out, put a new one in. Super efficient, which I think is really Elon's best skill is efficiency. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Finflexity.
Yeah, I would just like to ask that, we had a commentary that the Model 2 and the Robotaxi will be on the same platform. So I just wanted to know, is the platform the base of the car, like where you would attach your wiring and wheels, or is it the top?
The plan has changed. Now only the robotaxi is going to be built on the unbox process, and the compact models are going to be built on the existing 3 and Y line. They're still going to use steer-by-wire and the new motors and the new battery architecture, a lot of the same stuff, but they're not going to be built on this new unboxed production process.
Melville.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to remind people that haven't got software updates to go into their app store and tap on the Tesla and open it up and just make sure that that there's not an update available for the phone. Often that's what I found has been the hiccup. So if I go in there, and then finally,
so basically make sure your Tesla app is updated. The latest one. Okay. Another point?
Yeah.
Do you have another question?
That's not going to have any impact, but do connect your car to Wi-Fi.
There you go.
Okay.
What's your next question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, do you think that the new robo-taxi will be shown on 8/8?
Omar?
Looks like they're complete.
Thank you.
This event is a vehicle unveiling for the new driverless robotaxi vehicle, to be clear.
Aloha. Omar, August 9th. How much am I going to make if I send my Model 3 out to do robo rides?
$0. You'll probably actually be charged with reckless driving and be put in jail because I'm not expecting there to be any robotaxi service on August 9th. Again, this is an unveil of a driverless vehicle, which is going to go into production in 2026. Okay. So this is us looking at a new vehicle, not a launch. They may discuss the robotaxi network somewhat and their plans for it. I wouldn't be surprised. But this is primarily a vehicle unveil.
Thank you, Omar. AI Driver, are you there for a couple of minutes? Any updates on your end for your channel? Maybe 12.3.6. Any thoughts on 12.4, what you've seen so far?
Hey, sorry, I was away for a sec. Yeah, I've been working on a longer style video, kind of going over full self driving, kind of waiting in anticipation of 12.4 like everybody else. Haven't heard much information about it. Like I see a lot of posts saying we're going to get it any moment now, but I'm really hoping to see it go out to a wider group of employees because that's typically when we start to see leaks, and we know we're going to get it pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely. You excited for no nags in 12.4?
Oh God, yes.
Dude, some of the best content on YouTube is you guys kind of shooting shit in the car as the car drives you. Seriously, those are some of my favorite FSD videos, and I hope that you two do more of that.
Yeah, that's what Holmar's really opened my mind with that first version 12 drive. That's when I had to reset all of my expectations. I know I made a coffee bet with you, Yaman, early last year about a coffee bet that there'd be no robo taxis by the end of this year. And the closer we get, the more I'm thinking I'm probably going to be wrong about that. It's going to be at least one somewhere, I bet, by the end of the year.
Oh wow, that's a
That's a bold
major
prediction.
shift. Yeah, that is a bold prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you just look at what's happening with AI in every other space and think, yeah, well, that's probably not going to happen with full self-driving. Like it's a pretty hard leap to make.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if he's saying 5 to 10x miles per intervention between 12.3 and 12.4. I'm not going to believe it until I see it. But, if this is the magnitude we're talking about between updates, then who knows what we're going to be using in December.
The stock went up after hours 5% based on your prediction, AI driver. I'm kidding. Don't sweat it. And we have Machine in here to bring us back down with his negativity. But I can't accept his request to speak. That's weird. I guess.
Grok.
Yeah,
At work
exactly.
again.
Grok at work. All right, we're gonna leave it here then. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to be on Patreon for another 30-45 minutes. Answering questions from patrons, recapping what we talked about here, maybe touch on a couple of macro data points, and I will be back tomorrow, same time, 2 p.m. Central, for another 2 hours. Thank you very much, and take care.